Hello everyone, I'm Evelyn Heyes and I'm a BI and analytics consultant at Thorogood. The reason we're putting on this session is that as a company we are seeing more and more customers starting to use Power BI within their organisations. Sometimes this is a top-down led strategy to roll out Power BI as the tool of choice or alongside other tools, but we're also seeing it from the bottom up, where it's a case of business people downloading and using Power BI and the IT organisation having to react to that. So what we want to really look at is how do you maximise what you're trying to achieve with Power BI. In this session I'll do a very quick introduction to Thorogood for those of you who don't know us. I'll just have a quick look at what is special about Microsoft Power BI, and have a quick exploration of the value of self-service enablement, and then really go into the meat of the session in terms of how organisations can react to this groundswell of adoption of Power BI, primarily through setting up centres of excellence, and so what do they need to cover and what is involved in establishing them. For those of you who don't know Thorogood, we are an independent professional services firm and we specialise in business intelligence and analytics strategies, solutions and services. We're a global company. We have offices in London, New York, Philadelphia, Singapore, Sao Paulo and Bangalore. And all of our consultants possess a unique mix of skills, so blending business understanding with a strong technical aptitude and a deep understanding of analytical tools and techniques. We offer a full range of BI and analytics services, including strategy and roadmaps, requirements, design, implementation, user empowerment, training and support. In terms of our partnership with Microsoft, we have been a Microsoft Gold partner for over 15 years and currently Gold in data platform, data analytics and cloud platform. We're an approved cloud solution provider, and one of the most popular things we do in conjunction with Microsoft is delivering Power BI dashboard in a day training sessions in the US, UK and Singapore. We've also been delivering training in advanced analytics use cases, and we feature on Microsoft's Power BI Partner Showcase. But we're an independent company, so as well as partnering with Microsoft, we also work with a number of other technology vendors, as shown here. So what's special about Microsoft Power BI? Well, we've been working with Power BI since 2015 and been watching its evolution, and we really think that it's now ready for the market and provides a compelling option for surfacing data and insights. As I've already said, we're seeing a huge interest in Power BI from our customers, and a lot of them are adopting it to enable self-serve analytics. And actually we use it a lot internally within Thorogood as well. Its enterprise pricing makes it very attractive to customers. So customers can now buy premium capacity, which provides dedicated space on Microsoft's cloud, and pro licenses are available for those who want to publish, but there's pretty much unlimited scope for users to connect and consume data. So this does differ from other front-end tool licensing models where you tend to pay per person per month. The other thing about Power BI is that anyone in the organisation, in theory, can download the desktop tool and start using it to analyse data, to gain insight and to drive business value, even if there is enterprise licensing in place. So this can put pressure on IT unless there are centralised provision approaches. The cloud-based service, as you would expect from a cloud-based service, is constantly evolving, and the desktop tool has a monthly release cycle, so the evolution of Power BI is fast. So if you compare it to other tools, for example, in terms of the desktop release cycle, there are 12 new releases of Power BI each year compared to 3 or 4 for Tableau or Click or MicroStrategy, which only have annual major releases. So it's a good offering, it has compelling licensing and is constantly evolving, which is why our customers are finding it attractive, but it does bring challenges in terms of managing it. And what we have seen is that a coordinated, centrally driven approach can drive great economic benefits. If the use of best practice is promoted and opportunities to drive business value are identified, it can help to reduce the dependence on IT. Before I look at the Power BI governance, just wanted to explore the concept of the value that a power user can bring to an organisation. So with customers where you're making an investment in technology, in order to leverage that technology and the benefits you get from it, you need to have users who are trained and supported in the use of that technology in order for them to drive valuable insights. The leverage of the investment comes from the number of users that you have trained and supported, the skill level of those users to therefore drive even more valuable insights across the business. What is the value of a power user? Well, it can really be measured on two axes. So if you're looking to get power users who are very confident in using the technology and better enabled, then obviously it drives a business value benefit. So it allows people to have greater awareness of opportunities to look at their data to reduce the costs or to drive revenue. So ultimately, better, faster decisions from the users. But there's also another effect as well in terms of the reduced dependence on IT and the associated costs that go with that. So it means that IT can spend more time doing other activities such as provisioning more data, and that's definitely something that we're seeing in our customers at the moment, the clamour for introduction of new data sources that are available to them. So reduced bottlenecks on IT also means that decisions can be made faster. But if you look at it another way, where do the elements that drive decision-making come from at the moment, and where do you want them to come from? So if you think of your business needs as this grey box, at the moment, with a number of our customers, there is a high dependence on those technical experts to get to the insights, with a smaller number of business experts able to surface the data themselves. And this leads to a whole sort of host of latent needs. So I'm talking to a customer recently who runs a marketing insights department, and her view was that her team really know how to drive the business when they get data into their hands, but they're not particularly inclined to start playing around with pivot tables. From her point of view, if you can get a tool into her team's hands that is easy to use and that they want to use, it can really help to drive more insights. And the key thing that we are seeing with Power BI is that you don't really need much of a skill level to start driving more insights from data. So if you can move to the point where there is a great deal of expertise amongst business people and you are less reliant on the technical experts, then there's really a greater contribution to the business. There will be some latent needs, and there's still going to be need for technical experts. So if it's particularly complex reports that are required, or regulatory reports where data has to be absolutely right, then definitely you'll need technical experts. But with more and more business people looking to use Microsoft Power BI, you can really drive business value and drive powerful business decisions. So in order to introduce governance, we as a company recommend setting up Power BI Centre of Excellence. Now, the term Centre of Excellence isn't new. It's been around for years. People call them Centres of Excellence or competency centres. But I think there are particular challenges with Power BI that do warrant setting up a virtual Centre of Excellence, particularly when you've got a global company with business users all around the world who have already started using Power BI in some cases or are looking to use it moving forward. And in global companies, the challenge is to be at the centre of things and to be able to influence everywhere, regardless of physical location. So the Centre of Excellence should be a focal point rather than a literal physical centre. So what does the Centre of Excellence need to cover? Well, the short answer is a lot of things. The first is very much around the product itself, so understanding the product. It's a moving target, as I've already talked about, that it's constantly evolving, but it's understanding how it fits with other tools that you may already have in your organisation. So in a lot of our customers, they're using Power BI alongside Tableau or alongside Click. It's understanding when's best to use Power BI, but also when's best not to use Power BI. Understanding the current limitations, because by its very nature, it's constantly evolving, so that implies there are things that it can't do at the moment. So understanding the limitations, but also the potential workarounds if there is something really crucial to you that you want to be able to do in Power BI. And understanding the wish list of areas that it doesn't currently cover, and constantly keeping up to date with what's coming out each month. Someone has to understand what's happening with the product and where it's moving to. So that's around the product, but there's obviously a lot more that's required for a Power BI Centre of Excellence. The second aspect is technical integration. So how does Power BI fit into your current technical landscape? Again, we're seeing a number of customers implementing Azure and SharePoint Online and so on. So it's really understanding how that works, but also in cases where it doesn't currently potentially fit that well with your technical landscape, but it might do in the future. So we've got customers who are using Power BI, but are also using Anaplan. Well, currently Power BI doesn't connect directly to Anaplan, so if it's something that you do want to do, how do you do that? Or how do you make sure that you're keeping up to date so that you're aware when that connection is available? The second aspect is around data, and this is absolutely key. So very simple representation here that you have the Power BI user interface and you have your data. You might be storing your data in a data lake, it might be somewhere else, but you need to be able to access, or enable users to access that data. And in order to do that, you do need other layers in between. You need to be able to integrate the data and structure it such that it really does enable self-service, so that users can very easily set up dashboards to answer the questions that will drive their value, and also to provide a framework for guided analytics. So Power BI isn't just about the user interface, it's about ensuring that the data is appropriately structured underneath it. We've been doing a lot of work recently with customers, helping them to create the most appropriate environment given their technology situation and their needs. And really, in all of the customers, this drive to enable self-service is a huge consideration in that. But once you have got that in place, then this framework can serve as a starting point for automated analytics. So having the data structured correctly is key, and then once you've got that in place, you can really link the data lake to the dashboards to support guided analytics and ultimately automated analytics. The next aspect is around delivery. So again, absolutely key. So even in a self-service environment, it's vital that there is some sort of governance and framework provided for users to ensure that the most is made from the investment of time and technology. So there's a whole aspect around best practice, around dashboards and guided analytics, and making sure that people have guidelines that are born out of experience of early adopters of it. It's a case of establishing the rules that have to be abided by, but the guidelines that will really help people get started very quickly. Another vital aspect is the support for key projects, particularly if the adoption of Power BI is coming from to the top of the organisation. You want to make sure that the first implementations are successful and really help showcase the product. We've seen so many times in the past, regardless of what tool it is, that if the first implementation using a new front-end tool doesn't go well, then the users will think it's the tool that is the problem, but in fact it could be nothing to do with the tool, it's the way it's been implemented. Another aspect is that user experience isn't just about having a lovely looking dashboard. In fact, that's almost the end thing. User experience is all about performance and surfacing the data that people want to see. So again, we've seen examples from customers where they've had fantastic looking dashboards, but they take about half an hour to load, which results in no one using them. So the whole user experience approach needs to be considered, particularly with these early adopters, these early implementations, just to make sure that best practice guidelines are being followed, data is being surfaced and visualized sensibly, and that the applications are providing suitable performance. The next aspect is around business adoption. So we've already looked at the value of power users and what it means in terms of reducing the dependence on IT. So, how do you make sure that people do buy into this concept? So if my market insights manager I was talking about earlier can get her team to get over their fear of pivot tables and start looking at the data, it's incredibly powerful. Briefly mentioned dashboard in a day. That's one of our most popular marketing sessions around dashboard in a day, which really gives people a head start, so looking to see what they can do with Power BI, and something like that is even more valuable if you're doing it with your own data rather than a generic data set. And the value that can be driven from empowering users is immense, both in terms of business productivity, but in terms of reducing the dependence on IT. And we've worked with a number of customers on user empowerment programs, which is more than just training, but it's all around fostering the value of power users, around creating communities and ongoing education. And talking to a customer recently that we ran a program for probably about 3 years ago, and they're still talking about the value that that program is delivering. Another thing is around sort of advocates or ambassadors. If you've got a power user who is an ambassador or an advocate of the product, they can provide very effective local support when empowered by a Power BI Centre of Excellence. So much easier if someone has a question, a simple question around the use of Power BI, that they can wander over to a colleague's desk to ask, rather than having to channel all questions to the centre and wait for the answer. And there's definitely something around creating a community, creating a Power BI community. This might happen naturally, but if it is led from a centre of excellence, then it's even more powerful. Power BI applications are being created, it's important again for the Centre of Excellence to provide focused support. So this support will primarily be for the early adopters and the ambassadors, because that means that will then be leveraged across the rest of the business community. But one really crucial aspect not to overlook is around support functions. A number of our customers have a traditional support setup, so excuse me, applications are developed, they're productionized, and then they're handed over to a support team. So the support team will be trained in how to support that particular product at that point, but how do you keep them up to speed with the constantly evolving nature? So if a new Power BI application comes into support 6 months after the previous one, the actual tool that's being used could be very different from the tool that they've been supporting for the last 6 months. Communication is key. Microsoft as a company listen. They listen to the direction the customers think they should be going in. They listen to individuals, and particularly with Power BI, there's a very active blog community area for people to provide feedback. But it's much more powerful voice if it's a company talking to Microsoft rather than a load of different individuals from that company. So a Centre of Excellence can provide a means of gathering the internal feedback from all of the different voices and present one united opinion to Microsoft in terms of the direction they think that the product should be going. Then there's the communication back. So when new features are released, there's the evaluation of whether they are of value to the company, and if they are, how do you communicate that internally? How do you make sure that your power users are aware of what else they can now do with Power BI? And then there's the communication amongst the user communities within the organisation. So, the Centre of Excellence should act as a one point of contact with Microsoft, but you want to make sure that these communities are sharing experiences, sharing feedback, swapping hints and tips. So really making sure that there is an active communication means for people who are using Power BI to encourage and support each other. And then finally, there's the promotion of the product itself. So raising the awareness of the availability of it and the appropriate use of it, and if necessary, challenging the use of other potentially more expensive tools instead of Power BI. And then there's also the managing of the licensing, the actual licensing itself. So, the final part in terms of what a Centre of Excellence should cover is the promotion of the product. So there's a lot to cover within a Power BI Centre of Excellence, but if it's done right and it's done carefully, it can be incredibly powerful and leverage the investment that the companies have made in Power BI. So where do you start? Well, where you don't start is by sitting down and planning what you're going to do over the next 6 months. You have to start now, because if you don't, more and more people will be using the product without guidance and without best practice, and the product will just keep evolving. So our advice is very much think about what you can do now to get started and what you can then plan in parallel. So the first point really is around a starting point for what the product can do at the moment and what it can't do. What is it appropriate for and how does it fit with other tools that you may have? Second area is establish the key relationships, and really there are three key relationships that we see. So first of all, an implementation partner who can help you bring in the skills, the training expertise, the best practice guidelines, help with structuring the data and so on, so that you're enabling early adopters to get started very quickly and very easily. Establishing the relationship with Microsoft, so you've got that two-way communication set up immediately. And establishing the relationships with the user communities, so the ambassadors, the power users that you're probably already seeing if you do have Power BI in the organisation. It's a question of identifying and starting the conversations with those to really try and get things moving. Then areas around guidelines for best practice. What you don't want is a load of people going off producing dashboards without any particular guidelines or training, because they won't necessarily be fit for purpose, or they might not be the most efficient or effective dashboards that you could have. And then finally, the whole area around training and user empowerment. So showing people the power of the product and letting them discover for themselves how valuable that ability to surface data and insights can be. So hopefully that's covered, giving you some food for thought. If you would like more information about some of the topics I've covered today, we do have some resources and events on our website that could be relevant. So I've mentioned user empowerment a few times. We have a blog post which includes 4 videos and a webcast recording on this topic. We have a webcast recording of Thorogood's iterative dashboard methodology and how that can be applied to Power BI development. So with that, I'd just like to thank you for taking the time to listen today, and if you have any questions, please do reach out to me. My email address is shown on the screen at the moment. Thank you.